Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm here with Joe. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right, Perch. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've got a wonderful opportunity to talk to Phillip Kennedy Johnson, who's doing amazing stuff. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Perch?
I'm doing okay. I've been watching you over the last 2 years. You've come into a lot of prominence in this industry and writing big things for both companies right now, and it's very impressive. How surprising is this moment for you? You've been a comic fan forever, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like my whole life. And I mean, I learned how to read off of these books, and to get to write two of my favorite projects ever, right now is a pretty special time. I didn't say hey to you, Joe. Sorry. Good to meet both you guys on here. But yeah, it's been an incredible time where I'm trying not to overload myself with projects, because these two that I'm on are so like special to me. And I've had some other shorter gigs kind of come along too, like the Extreme Carnage thing and like other one shots that are about to release and all that. But like the two ongoings that I'm going to be doing for hopefully a long time are Superman and Alien, and I'm just having an amazing time on them.
Awesome.
How so? Kind of diving right into it, Superman as a character is one that a lot of writers seem to struggle with. I mean, you see these interviews almost after the fact, or even before somebody takes on the run, saying this character is just very difficult to write. One of the hardest characters. I've seen writers who've come up who said, I would never want to go on that title because it's just, what can you do with Superman? Reading your run, it feels very natural. It doesn't feel like you're struggling with that character. What's your take on it? Is Superman hard to write?
I don't think so, honestly. Like I've never had that take. I mean, people talk about how he's like, oh, he's so powerful. What do you do with it? And I don't understand that take, because yeah, he's physically very strong. But I mean, he's been physically challenged over and over against other, like, these massive threats. Or I mean, he's also he has these weaknesses regarding how much he cares about various other characters. Or I mean, he cares so much about all life. I mean, the way to punish Superman is to threaten the people he loves.
Right.
I don't find him hard at all, and especially now after the Tomasi and Jurgen stuff, where he's a father now. As a father of a young son myself, that makes it almost too easy. I mean, I've written stuff now that is an unapologetic love letter to my son, and it just makes it so rewarding. I'm so in love with the old Christopher Reeve movies, and and these certain like keystone books, or touchstone books rather, that I have read, and I'm trying to pay homage to, like these moments that give me those chills, like, oh, I want to be great, I'm trying to capture those moments, the moments like the opening credits, the fanfare, and everything at the beginning of the first 1978 film, and these moments of specific books that I'm trying to capture that magic, and if that's kind of your guiding light, and if you remember other key things about the character, it's just this amazingly rewarding experience. Like, you're trying to make everyone feel like just $1 million. You want to make them feel like not just that they can fly, but they want to fly. You want to make people feel like they want to be more and help everyone. And it's just such an aspirational experience writing him and reading him when it's done well. I'm loving it. I don't find it difficult at all. It's like I'm inspired to take a swing at it.
It's I mean, there's a couple elements to what you're doing here. It feels like, and again, I don't want to throw shade on any previous writers who've been on it, but it feels like people overthink Superman to some extent. Like, he's too powerful, so I've got to come up with these very exaggerated ways to kind of tackle that. But like you said, Superman has almost more weaknesses than many of the other characters. He's got his family, he's got his moral code. There's the whole magic business as well, just that is there. Yeah. He's filled with weaknesses you can exploit if that's your angle. But the other piece to this is, it looks like you're setting off on a longer run. I mean, at least you're setting up an epic run. I don't know if you can comment on it, but how long do you know how long you're on this title? Is it open-ended?
I shouldn't say how long I have planned for, but because of the nature of any kind of big shared universe, because plans change. Like if they decide to do this gigantic event, that I'm going to throw out some random months now. These are not spoilers, but let's say I have a run that is supposed to end December of 2022, but then it turns out that Josh Williamson has an event that starts October 2022, and he needs Clark for that specific moment. That's going to change everything.
Sure.
Or vice versa. If I need him to go longer, there are needs in other books that impact the story that I'm doing now. I mean, a great example of that is Grant Morrison's and Mikhail Hanin's Superman of the Authority book, where he had a very specific story that he wanted to tell, and I had one too, and we had to kind of find ways to feather that space and make them both work, and that's what we did. If I was working in a vacuum, there are little things that would be different in my run, and I dare say probably the same for Grant as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of Superman, it feels like, and again, not throwing shade on anyone else who deals with the character, but it feels like every time a Superman comes up and there's people taking over, they're doing a new thing with Superman, it's the same handful of pop culture points and references that people mention. It's always like, I really like the Christopher Reeve run. I thought John Byrne did a great job doing that, and like there's just so much Superman out there, though. So, what are some maybe Superman comics or just either storylines or even one-offs or things like that stuck with you over the years that don't get the same attention as some of these other big points in Superman's history?
Let's see. Well, okay, so many of my influences are not anything super obscure is going to like blow anyone away. Like, wow, he has such great knowledge. Like Christopher Reeve, and I understand not all those movies are great, but I remember deeply loving the fourth film as a kid, and the first two movies are just so, oh my god, I'm literally getting chills on thinking about that. And I'm not going to comment how well they hold up now compared to modern cinema, but at the time, man, it just changed my life. That's not an overstatement to say that. Yeah. In some ways shaped my life, because I also took great notice of John Williams' music and the power of these incredible brass fanfares and all that. And now I'm a professional trumpet player for the Army. I play that kind of music for a living. And now I get to write these comics too. Like, in a way, that 1978 film is one of the most important bits of culture I've ever consumed. But aside from that, comic stuff that influenced me growing up, the big one, and I've mentioned this on the podcast too, and I apologize if I'm boring anyone that's listening, but Superman 400 is this issue that I found incredibly impactful, because most of the stuff I had read, most of the Superman that I had been consuming up until that time was older stuff. Like, Dad would come home with these boxes of really old comics from garage sales or flea markets and stuff, and there was a lot of Kurt Swan in there, and a lot of Silver Age and pre-Silver Age, a lot of Batman, Superman, World's Finest stuff, certain kinds of stories. And then when I read, they were great, and I still love them. But then you read Superman 400, and for those who don't know, that's an anthology that is all about, like, the theme that runs through that anthology is Superman in the future. Like, that's it. And there are pinups by all the biggest names in comics that were alive at that time. Like, practically everyone. Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, Mobius, Bernie Wrightson, Shaken, fucking Steranko. Everybody's in that book. Frank Miller did a full story. Steranko did too. And some of those things still resonate in my work now. Like, I go, and not on purpose, I'll go back and read Steranko, and he's got this story about Superman, like this kind of Old Testament story about what happens to the descendants of Superman after his death. And that's like, that kind of stuff. It's all through Last God and all through my House of L book that I did. And it just really made a huge impact on me. And a lot of it is not even about Superman directly. It's about the impact that he made on the world after he left. Yeah. And so when I got a shot to do Superman, without even really thinking about it, this kind of homage to Superman 400 kind of came together in my head, where it's all about Superman in the future, where it goes, and him as almost like a spiritual leader. And I wanted to see this big Robert E. Howard kind of crazy space epic with Superman, and get out of the Daily Planet bullpen and show, like, put the super in Superman, see how big an epic we can get with it,
And that's how it reads. I'm trying. Everybody's got their run and their different take on the character, but it feels like with what you're doing with War World, and it does feel like a space epic, or just epic. It feels like, and that's why I asked you a question about how long is it going to go. A lot of comics right now, somewhat by intent, are being written with a very short leash. The publisher's given that writer, 3 months, maybe 6 months to kind of hook somebody, and you don't really know where you stand, and it's just tough to, I think, getting kind of big story going in that kind of constraint. With this universe we've created, I think on the indie scene, fine, but you're talking, Fantastic Four or Spider-Man or Green Lantern or Batman or whatever. How could you plan in such a tiny increment of time and get a big epic feel? It feels like you're putting together something that could go for 5 years.
That's the hope. Yeah. Without getting into how long it's going to go, there's some Lois fans. If I say the word 5 years, people are going to be super pissed at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want something that's going to, like this big Dark Phoenix saga kind of thing that's going to be on the shelf and be this touchstone run, I hope. And with artists like Daniel Sampere and Miguel Mendonça, and Miguel is the person who's coming on after Daniel, and then there's another person coming up after that I cannot reveal, but it's going to be insanely exciting. I feel like the potential is there to have this story that's not just, because when I first announced, when Future State came out and we see images of him on Warworld, there's some fans of the old stuff. They're like, man, we've seen this before. And you find, pull out the old stuff of him with the thing across his chest and the headband and the old Gladiator Superman image. And everyone's like, man, this has been done before and better. And, I don't take that to heart because, they don't know what's coming. They don't know how, I'm trying to take that kind of idea and just blow it way out and tell a story that hopefully will matter. It's like now they've given us the space to really go nuts. I want to introduce a lot of cultural stuff on Warworld. I don't want to see Warworld ever again as a big, shiny metal ball with guns sticking out of it.
No doubt.
It doesn't have to be a Death Star ripoff. It can be this amazingly deep, rich place. I see Warworld as a place where it is kind of a Death Star, and that is the space station that goes, across the galaxy, across the universe, conquers worlds, kills most, enslaves many, takes the slaves back on the planet with them. That's how they kind of recruit, quote unquote. And it's kind of over time become this crazy melting pot of cultures all across the universe, like this. A preserve for all these otherwise dead species. To me, I find that extremely interesting and fascinating. And I want to see, why is it red? Why is everyone always depicted as red? Well, it's metal. There's a lot of metal there. Like, let's say that's because all of the structures there are actually taken from salvaged bits from all these different cultures that they bring back for resources. So now all the buildings that are there are actually pieces of different structures that they've stolen. And there's an atmosphere there, so it rains presumably, which means like everything rusts, and like there's these big pools of rusty water that look like blood, and it just makes this Mars-like landscape. I want to explore all that and make it a real place, not just a big metal ball with angry aliens on it, but like a place where people live, they have languages, and I'm really going nuts with it. And the fact that they're letting me do it is so exciting, and I hope it leads to other creators doing similar things where they can take Aquaman for 2 years and make Atlantis a real place and not just a place where you see, some soldiers that all kind of look like us and speak English, but like real places.
Running around a dolphin every now and then. And
now and again. Yeah.
I people hate this comment as I make it, but in the world where IP is so valuable for movies and creating these franchises and everything else, you have to put some personality into these places if it's going to be something that's going to stand out in the theater. If you're thinking about where to go with Superman on a Warworld planet is fully fleshed out, fully defined with a lot of this nuance. You're building them very rich IP at this point.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so. I try not to think about stuff like, films and all that, but I definitely feel like it's important to flesh out these worlds. I try to look for places in characters that I think have been a little underserved and make them more interesting. And Mongol is the perfect example of that. I feel like Mongol's always been kind of one-dimensional, and there's not a lot of stories he's been in where he can't be replaced with another similar bad guy that's kind of evil just cause. Bendis did me a real service by killing him off and bringing his son into the mix, because now we've got this new Mongol that Superman's never met. And we have an opportunity to make him way more dangerous, way more interesting, way more sympathetic, and just way more interesting. I want to see him, the way I try to separate him from other similar, like physically similar characters like Thanos and Darkseid, was we're making him a slaver. And he's all like, we try to establish this war zoom culture on Warworld that is, it's all built around the concept of dominance. The way that the Fremen of Dune are built around water scarcity. Like it colors everything about them. Mm-hmm. And that need to dominate others and the chain that they wear and all that, that's the central tenet to everything that they are. And that, I hope, will separate them very clearly from the Fourth World guys and from Thanos and from other guys, other similarly muscly, multicolored villains. I want to see somebody, like, give him a real personality, make him legit scary, like really scary, and make him the true antithesis of Superman, who's all about truth and justice, freedom and hope, and find this guy who's all about just this cult of slavery.
Yeah. No, it's I'm excited by your run. I really like your run. I'm trying to make it all positive. I think it's what I think a lot of people have been hoping to see out of Superman for a while, something more epic, something bigger, something new. One of the more controversial pieces about Superman, which has kind of evolved over time, this entire kind of aging up of Jon Kent. Now, he's not in your run, but he has been in your run, but he's not part of your Warworld arc, from what I understand. How you mentioned kind of being able to tie into your son and kind of this idea of fatherhood and everything else. Mm-hmm. Do you have a take on? Did they leave value on the table by aging him up? Did they just unlock other things? What do you think about that?
I feel like it was a trade-off. I think I understand that people want to see him age in real time and see more of that family dynamic, because the family dynamic was so great with Tomasi.
It was fresh at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome. And seeing Superman as a dad is just so cool and feels so good. It's so easy to get that Superman feel-good buzz that you want from a Superman book. So yeah, you want that. You want to see more of him like zipping around the cornfield in his Superman hoodie.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the personality. I tried to keep that personality to Jon when I got the reins. He's still who he is. I thought it was great how when he came back from the future, he was still that same. And I wrote this in one of the Superman issues. Like, he's still that same generous, fun-loving, just gregarious kid. And I kind of like the dynamic with Damian now too, that way, or the one that we could potentially do, because now he's bigger and beefier, and Damian's a little dude, but Damian's still scowly and more sly and suspicious, and Jon is still like just fun and kind of like he's eating. I'll show a scene where he's eating something and getting stuff on his shirt, and he's just kind of fun and messy and just this beautiful kid, And even though he's bigger now, it kind of makes that contrast even more stark.
You can do things good, for sure.
So I don't feel like we lost that much. I mean, in theory, I get that we did, in theory. But if you look at the practice of what people are doing so far, I mean, not to speak about Tom's run, but and potential that we could do with Super Sons in the future, I don't think we've lost very much at all. I think the same kind of dynamic is still there. And now we have opportunities for them to go on these missions together. And I got to do that on Superman 30 through 32, I think. And it was just a kind of a one-off adventure where they could just go off and have this adventure together. And Superman was kind of recounting this adventure to his son in this letter, assuring him that he's going to be okay and that he's up to it and everything. And that's something it would have been harder to do if he was still just a little boy who didn't really have his head around his powers yet. And now we get to see his son kind of overshadow him in some ways. Mm-hmm. Like he's getting control, kind of taking that next step. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, that old cliche. We get to kind of see that happening with Jon. We get to see him stand on his dad's shoulders and get this little bit of control and nuance over his powers that dad might not have had, because he's the first ever. So yeah, I think we gained more than we lost. But even if that's, I mean, when I first came on the book, I got harassed like crazy.
You did. I mean, I'm curious. So, and not to water completely into it, but I mean, you came in an interesting moment where you had a decent segment of the fan base. I mean, who knows, of the customers who were frustrated of a lot of things. It wasn't just one thing. It was the Jon Kent aging up. There was, some people who didn't necessarily like the direction Bendis had took it. There was the reveal of the secret identity. There was a group of fans angry about that. And then there was other people who were angry about just death metal in general and starting the universe. I mean, for all the writers who came in at Future State and then moving forward, everybody came in, it felt like, with a bit of a target on their back. That's probably not the right wording, but just there was this built up frustration. How do you step in and navigate that? Because I mean, you're just wanting to come in and tell a big story, and I imagine you have to find yourself saying a lot of the time, look, just trust me and let me show you where I'm going at least first. Like, what do you do?
It's a little bit of a balancing act, because I don't want to give any fans. I mean, I'm a huge fan myself, as I imagine. I'm sure you guys are too. I know you guys are from hearing the show. And I'm not going to, give the finger to any other fan like myself. I mean, I get how much it comes from a place of love primarily. So you can't just be like, man, screw you, I'm the boss. But you also can't be, or shouldn't at least feel like a slave to whatever direction you feel like, whoever makes the most noise. If somebody's like, hashtag, Snyder cutting me.
Sure.
It's not, I can't be beholden to that, to the point where it's like, well, we have to, because that's what the fans want.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Yeah. This is not what I want to do. The other day I saw one sheet where somebody was like, well, what, next Spider-Man movie, what's it called? No Way Home. Like, here's what No Way Home would look like if the fans directed it or something like that. And it's like every Marvel character ever, every DC character ever, Star Wars, Pokemon, just everything they love in one film. Like Spider-Man's just making the rounds in every universe that's ever existed. And, people love all this stuff and they just want fan service. And I feel like you have to kind of play the long game in some of these instances. There were a lot of people, as you know, that wanted me to age down Jon, just wave a wand and just like one more day, Jon, and just take it all away and make him a kid again. To me, it just struck me as super disrespectful to everyone, to the characters, to Bendis, to DC, to the readers first and foremost, because love it or hate it, that's canon now. And to just be like, never mind, to me just made it seem way too easy to be like, well, none of this counts. All the stuff that you just read, none of it counts because I just said so.
Yeah. No, I guarantee. I saw a lot of people pushing for that. There would have been just as much irritation if you'd done that, if not more. I mean, you can't just put the genie back in the bottle and be like, surprise, it doesn't work.
Because people had a lot of fun theories about like, well, here's what could have happened. Like when he was in that volcano, what if he was actually this other kid and blah, blah, blah. The thing is, he's been through a lot since then. We have seen him get older. He's been through the stuff with Legion. We've seen a lot of stuff with Jon. And if we made him young again, we would just be undoing all of that, all that character development, plus everything that Tom has been planning in Son of Kal-El, which is super important stuff. So the long game will treat us kindly, I think. It's people will be able to look back and see why it would have been this tragic mistake to undo what was done.
You have to look at the choices. Yeah.
I feel like part of this too is like I was a big fan of Super Sons and young Jon Kent and all of that. And I thought that was great. Some of the problem, I think, comes with, okay, you didn't want him to age up now. Would people ever have been okay with a change in that character? Or would we have waited until it was stale and no one liked it? And then we were all complaining, like, why isn't Jonathan Kent evolving or growing as a character? And, like, it seems like it's very difficult to sort of navigate and project, like, how long a story should really be. Where can we get the audience to be on board the whole time, where they're not going to be upset that it's cut short or get bored and drop off because it's going on too long? I lean towards, I'd rather something get cut short than dragged out until I don't care about it anymore. So I do think that that's part of it. And when you're writing and when you're working on this stuff, like, how do you sort of navigate, like, am I taking too long for this? Am I rushing this part? Like, how does that work for you?
I think you just think about the story that you're telling at that moment. I mean, I do try to think about down the line where War World Saga is going to go, where I'm going to leave things, these other threads that I'm going to bring back in, ways to work in some character, because there's a lot of character. I mean, obviously, as Clark goes to War World, there's a lot of characters in his supporting cast that matter a lot who are left behind on Earth, and they're not going to be there without him forever. You got to bring him back in some way.
Yeah.
and not just Lois, but others as well that I'm dying to use again, or use for the first time, but not just because I want to. I don't know. You kind of have to just kind of. I mean, I know not everyone feels great about how it was done, but I mean that decision bore a lot of fruit. I mean, the fact that he's the center of Legion and that character really kind of steered that direction of that book. The stuff now that Tom's doing could not have happened otherwise, and that book's going to be awesome. It gave us a lot of stories, and yeah, you're right. It sparked a lot of conversations. I mean, I do think, and if you got to choose between that or overstaying your welcome, I mean, it's better to do that than wait until he's being taken for granted at that age. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the new DC, part of the mission, at least that was sold to the customers, and I think to the creative teams as well, was that we do have more freedom to tell more stories. If somebody came with a pitch of, we're going to tell a story set in the past of Clark as a dad and John as a kid and hanging out with Damian, and it's going to be a 12 issue, whatever, or who knows, or just ongoing if you keep selling. I think there's room in the company to do that now, where you could tell these stories. So,
yeah, I mean, why not? It's just comics. We're doing Superman 78, Batman 89.
Yeah,
we've done Batman 66. I'm doing a book right now. I got one shot coming out next month that shows one of the most beloved characters in a version of himself in the future.
Sure.
Like way in the future. So, I mean, you can do whatever you want in comics. That's the beauty of the medium. I mean, while people were complaining so much about Super Sons being like quote unquote gone, there was that amazing, like Tomasi and George Corona were doing a Super Sons series that was terrific.
I think a lot of people missed that, which is a weird and a shame, because that was a great series.
Yeah, it was awesome. Tomasi's great. You can't say he's underappreciated, because like people really appreciate him now. But he did a lot of great work for Superman and just in general for DC.
Absolutely.
I feel like this is a point, but I agree with all that. I do. One of these days, I'm going to have to ask kind of the people you interview, can you explain the concept of the linear verse to us in a coherent way? But
oh man, I should have sent me that question ahead of time. I'm not sure I'm the one to do that. So when you say linear verse, forgive my ignorance here, because I'm actually not as up on this as probably a lot of readers are. Because there's this joke in the industry, like if you're making comics, you don't have time to read comics.
Yeah.
So I'm not as up on it as I should be. But,
well, I kind of think DC walked away from this. Do you think, Joe? Like, I mean, the linear verse hasn't come up again since February. So maybe
I think so. I don't think it's like. I think it's kind of just a case by case basis. Like if someone wants to tell a story and they need the out of the linear verse to make it that jigsaw puzzle fit into the greater thing, that they can use it. And if you don't need it, you don't need to use that tool. I think is kind of where it's at.
By linear verse, I'm sorry, Perch, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we should explain what this thing is. So
you mean the 5G thing? The 5G thing? Is that what you mean?
Well, it was kind of an offshoot of that. It's where they had the Avengers Forever kind of knock off. That's unfair to the writer who said it. But basically, characters pulled through time to face a threat in DC. And they revealed, they were trying to answer a question which I always feel shouldn't be answered, which is, how is it that Batman existed in the 30s and exists in the 90s and he doesn't look like he's aged? And the answer kind of they came up with on the comic was the linear verse, everyone just ages slow. And that's it. And yeah, you're having the same reaction Joe did, actually, when I explained it to him the first time. But it's one of those things that are in comics. Maybe you don't need to explain every answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's the answer, right? I mean, if you were to read, that is the answer. So, I mean, I think that the 5G thing where everyone has their period in time and that's just it. Like Batman has a 30th birthday and it's a very specific date in the calendar and it'll never change. Talk about a ballsy swing. I mean, that would have been a big change. And apparently there is a version of there is a world within the Omniverse now or something where that's a thing. Yeah, I'm not as up on that aspect of the lore because I know it's paid lip service in all these different books, and I don't know. I've not read all the books in which it's referred to.
Sure.
So I'm kind of not qualified to talk about it, honestly.
Multiverse, anything can happen somewhere. The end.
Yeah, I know. Like that's the beauty. The beauty of that, of the multiverse idea, is that any version of a thing that you like. You know, when I was a kid, I wanted. You know, I had this fantasy where all the cartoons and the live action movies, everyone looked the same everywhere, like the same actor. And you know, it's just a childish thing, and I don't feel that way anymore at all. There's different versions of things that I like, and it's cool to know that if somebody has a real like deep love of Batman '89 and that whole what Gotham would look like in that world, that there's a you know, that exists somewhere, quote unquote.
It's fiction. Our actors don't age, so we can do what we want.
Yeah,
or the age we want.
Yeah, it's all just fun and games.
I'd love to take a step back even and talk more about just writing in general, in the sense that your career trajectory has been somewhat unique in that very quickly you worked on multiple projects in different genres. I mean, you know, Last God, you know, Superman, Alien franchise comics, they're very different. Like some of the tone in some of the comics are similar, but I mean, we're talking, you know, fantasy, horror, and superhero work very quickly. And you tend to see more often than not, you know, creators kind of get pigeonholed early on in their careers, and you've sort of done this like masterfully in terms of like avoiding that, because no one's going to pin you as, oh, he's a superhero comics guy, or you know, something like that off the bat, because you already have all this other work, you know, high profile work. So is that something that you were actively doing? Did it just sort of work out that way? Like how'd that work for you?
Well, thanks for saying that. That's very kind. And it's something I've tried to cultivate. I heard an interview, or maybe I read it. I can't remember if I read it or heard it, but Neil Gaiman talked about someone who gave him advice very early on. Kind of thought his work was all over the place, and really thought that he should commit to a certain kind of, like, find his niche, you know. And he pushed back on that hard. And he didn't want that. He didn't want to be just a horror writer or just a comics guy. He wanted to do comics and screenplays and, you know, episodes of Doctor Who and kids books and all these different things. Now he's done all that stuff and so much more. And I love that. I love the fact that he can just make whatever he wants. Doing this, you know, live readings himself of his own work with music playing and images behind him. And it's just all this beautiful work.
It's worked out well for him. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. And that aside, it's just a beautiful body of work that I also want to have something like that too. I want to make all these different things and just be creatively fulfilled all the time. Just make whatever I want. I mean, I love horror movies. I love Alien deeply, but I also, like, my whole life is shaped by Superman stories. And I love Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and Ursula K. Le Guin. And I have all these stories I wanted to tell, all these different mediums too. I don't want to just, you know, die a comics writer. There's other things I like to do as well. So yeah, I mean, that Neil Gaiman kind of template is what I've tried to follow. I mean, it's not like I was turning down a lot of work a couple of years ago. Like, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to be too pigeonholed. If someone offered me another superhero book, at the same time, I would have taken it. But I was also very mindful of not doing too much of a certain thing. Like if I found my path starting to lean toward a certain thing, I would make sure I branched off into another direction as well at the same time, so that I was showing people different sides at all times, you know?
Yeah. I like the command you took. I mean, it feels like you really took command of your career, and like Joe said, it served you really well. I mean, you are impossible to typecast right now in a very good way. And I mean, I'm just looking over this stuff. We got to talk about Alien some, but Last God was on a lot of people's lists of the best comic last year. Most of the people listening to this show, that always comes up.
I'm so glad, man. I'm so proud of that book. I mean, Ricardo is a maniac. Ricardo's art is so great. Yeah, I was hoping his name would pop up on some of the you know, best of lists, because his work on that was just staggering. He's like a Dutch master. They got, you know, sent forward in time. He's almost too good for comics. I
mean, the only negative to that book is just, is that they didn't promote it as much as they I think they came late to the idea that they should promote it more, and they started to. But I mean, this is a book that I suspect, and it looks like they're going to start to bind it, put out a hardcover edition, put out some special ones. This is one that 20 years from now is going to be like a Watchmen in the sense that it's evergreen and people can pick it up and read it, and DC can continue to make money off of it, and hopefully you too, with some nice art.
I mean, thank you. I really hope so, because I mean, Ricardo's art just really, it deserves to be out there, and I put so much love into the world building and all that. I'm really glad to see people's reaction to it. It is out in hardcover now, so and that volume is so kick ass. I mean, like the dust jacket comes off and unfolds into this giant map that we designed together, and it's just so fun. So a love letter to any kind of high fantasy fan. So it was such just a joy to work on.
Well, hopefully it's more Watchmen and less of a Camelot 3000 in terms of sales and all of that. Joe. You know, and I love it, but you compare the two sales wise.
Well, sure. I was looking through some of your books, and I was refreshing myself on a couple of them. I came across one of your web books, Killing Marcus.
Oh yeah,
which I'd read a while ago, I think, and then came back to. But you to your point, like you look at something like Superman, you look at something like Aliens, you look at something like Killing Marcus, radically different tone.
Yeah.
But you take extra work to provide depth to characters. That's the consistent thread. Your characters always have a sense of motivation, a sense of drive, a sense of nuance that you can see consistently, even when the genres are radically different. And I think that feels like your thread. I think that's why so many people are responding so well to you.
Thanks again for that. I mean, I'm trying to tell the story that everyone's a hero of their own story, even the bad guy. And that's kind of the point of that book. So that issue, Killing Marcus became the first issue of Smoketown for Scout Comics. Mm-hmm. I just made friends with Jim Pruitt, who just become now I'm kind of showing my ass here. I can't remember exactly his title. If he's the publisher or the creative of the CEO, but he had just taken over there, and he was like, "Hey, we're looking for content, and I really like this one issue. Why don't you put out Killing Marcus as a story for us?" I'm like, "Guy dies at the end." And he was like, "Yeah, but we can do it in this series. We'll figure it out. Let's just do it." I'm like, "Okay, I'll think of something." So, and that was a book that was just drawn by a friend of mine. So I'm a musician by trade, or was before comics kind of took off. And this other guy he was the Barry sax player in the Glenn Miller band when I was in that band. Oh, yeah. And he just happened to be this amazing artist who loved comics. And when I was in the band, it never came up. But now he lives in the DC area. We were kind of talking about it. And as I was getting other books put out, he was like, "Let's do a comic together." And this other saxophonist was a very talented colorist and letterer. And so these three musicians, we just put this book out for free just to make it, just because my friends wanted to. And then it became this 8-issue series, Smoketown. And it's kind of like Pulp Fiction, and that's an anthology of short stories that kind of weave together and tell a bigger story of this little blue-collar town. Mm-hmm. And the whole point. Thank you very much. I'm very proud of it. And that was those guys' first book, and they just got better and better throughout the whole series. It was really fun. And it's the whole point of that series is to kind of demonstrate, like, show these people who kind of fell through the cracks of American blue collar society and how they all tie together into this kind of a grungy criminal side of this little town. Thanks for noticing that. I try not to have too many just pure evil, one-dimensional villains. I want everyone to have their backstory and the reason why they want what they want and what they're trying to do and what they're afraid of.
Yeah, I'm just glad you could tell a story like that without politics.
Thanks, Joe. It's a really good story. It's a great story, and it's got depth to the characters. Again, but it pays off when you read Superman, and you read what you're doing with Alien right now. It fits this deeper. No character feels one dimensional, and I've seen a bunch of people online talking about, can we get Phillip Kennedy Johnson to work on Captain America because he was in the military, Phillip's in the military, or put them together. I think I don't want you to go to that title. I mean, you've written some issues for it. It's great, but you're providing this giant world building with Superman. I mean, what you had a reaction there? What's your take? Do you want to do Cap?
I mean, I love Cap. But I'm in the middle of this thing with Superman and also with Alien. There's other stuff happening, but I deeply love Captain America and Bucky too. I love Bucky as like the broken sidekick that grew up into this other thing, and kind of like shows a more complicated side of America. And I just love Bucky too. Mm-hmm. But so I kind of had the reaction because after I wrote that Cap series, so Marvel came to me to write Cap during the Empire event, which is just a big, plant aliens invade Earth, and they were like, as they do, and they said, the directive was, while the Avengers are doing their thing, while Fantastic Four is doing their thing, X-Men's doing their thing, Cap is rallying the military forces of Earth to fight the alien threat. All militaries of Earth fighting the aliens with Cap at the head. Go. I was like, great. I'll bring in some S.H.I.E.L.D. action here too. And they're like, actually, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s not in the comics right now. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm going to make up my own team of Howling Commandos with modern day soldiers. So I introduced a new team of just U.S. soldiers who are trying to protect Washington, D.C. in the first issue. And they become Cap's crew. I got lit up after that series by people who just thought I was making this big propaganda book about why the U.S. military is super kick-ass. And I don't know, people got real mad that I took that direction. And, not knowing that was a directive, like, okay, Cap leads actual soldiers, not superheroes in this book. That was the whole point of the series. Yeah. I do feel like if I were to write Cap right now, before I've had a chance to really establish a voice in other books first, it's going to be like that again. There's going to be like a swath of comic readers who are just who are looking to get pissed. Like, who are just after, like, this guy's an active duty soldier. He's got they just imagine every soldier in the U.S. Army as this monolith that all looks a certain way and votes a certain way. So I would be careful. I'll be very careful taking a gig like that and making sure that, I guess I just end that sentence right there. I would just be very careful taking that book and make sure that people aren't getting banning the book just because of who I am,
Well, I think, I don't think it's ever a good idea when we're saying, well, you have this particular background, so let's put you on this exact book and just kind of call it a day. I mean, you're over here building this giant epic world with Superman. You've got a bunch of things going on with Alien right now, or the aliens. You've got what you did with Last God. Why would why turn around and say, well, the best place for this guy, he was in the military, so let's give him the book that most closely resembles military. Call it a day. That seems like a really stupid choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be hesitant to do that. Like, anytime they got a book, I did get an opportunity to write a U.S. agent thing, and I was like, I don't think it's a good idea. Kind of for that reason. I just don't want people to, because when I was announced as Superman, that was after Cap, and there were a lot of people who were like, great. Like, now it's going to be this big rah American apple pie thing. And that wasn't the story I wanted to tell at all, but people just kind of expected a certain thing from me. So I'm not going to say I'm never going to write a war book. That was actually my foot in the door. Marvel was doing these 80th anniversary celebration issues.
That's right.
And one of them was War as Hell, which was an old war book that Marvel did back in the day. And they were like, it's going to be 20 pages. We're going to give 10 pages to Shaken, and you're going to do the other 10. It's like, oh, okay.
That's a good pairing there.
Yeah, I know. I kind of didn't want to be in there like Shaken's going to eat my lunch, but I'll take a swing at it, sure. And we told two very different stories. He told one about World War II aviators, basically about the death of Glenn Miller during World War II. And I reimagined the story that I had heard from this ranger friend of mine, Army Ranger, whose whole gig for several tours in Afghanistan and Iraq was just going on night raids, kicking in doors and killing dudes in their sleep. And it was a very dark story that's it's all about, basically it treats PTSD as this like a folktale about the story is called War Devil. And it's the idea of PTSD as this try and draw a blank on the word here.
Like a force, right?
As this contagious thing that passes from person to person through blood. Like, you kill someone and the blood splashes on you and you catch what they had. And it's like this disease. And you get possessed by this war devil that's been around since the first murder, And that's the war devil, the Genie de Gaulle. So that was my first story at Marvel, and then I got the Cap gig, which was cool. I mean, I've gotten other stuff that since then it's not just military, but yeah, I feel like I have to be kind of mindful of it and not overstay that welcome, you know.
It goes back to being typecast. I mean, your Cap story was great, by the way. I think it's but right now, if I was looking at what you're writing, I want to see you spend a lot of time on Superman right now because it's good.
Thank you.
And Alien. So you mentioned a couple times today, Alien is also one of your favorite properties here.
Yeah, I love those movies. Sorry, go ahead.
No. So so was there a moment where you're kind of being, I don't know, pitched to do this book or you're coming into it? Is there this moment where you say, wait a minute, Marvel, the company owned by Disney, doing an Alien book? What even am I supposed to do there? Was that ever a consideration or?
I asked about it. Yeah. I was like, what's the tone going to be like? And they assured me that they wanted to treat it like a legit Alien story, that we were going to get the green light to get away with things that we couldn't do in a standard Marvel book. The language and the gore and the themes and all that are things that we cannot necessarily explore in the Avengers, and that was important. I didn't want to do a, Magic Kingdom version of Alien, I guess, because I love those movies and I don't want it to be, crap. But they assured me they were going to do the real thing, and that's all I needed to hear. And they've been. I mean, I do push that envelope in the scripts. There are times when, you don't see the ones that I write originally. You're seeing the versions that make it through, quality control. There's sometimes when the things that go through, I really push. I want to see how far I can go with the gore. Because it needs it. I mean, it's an Alien story, and I want to see where the line is. And I think we found a line with how far they're willing to go. Because it can't be torture porn.
Sure.
And they do have their stand. It is still a Marvel book, so there's still a line that has to be respected. But they've been pretty cool about it, actually.
But do you or anyone in editorial or fans that talk to you joke about how a lot of these aliens are all technically Disney princesses since they were born from a queen?
That's a joke I've made myself, but not in the books. No, we don't talk about that in the books. So is there an example? What's something you got pushed back on that wouldn't fly? Let me see. There was a murder in which we see an alien get a hold of this dude and rip his rib cage out.
Mm-hmm.
And that does end up happening on the page, but you don't see the moment of you don't see the bones breaking, it's stuff like that. Or there was a page turn, we turn a page and boom, someone's head gets blown off, which they did. Let's get away with, but they did give us a lot of muzzle flare from that shotgun to cover up some of the bits of brain and skull that were going out the back. Let's see, what's another thing? There's a thing that. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Well, there's a. So if you've seen the deleted scenes in the first movie, there's the egg morphing scene where one of the characters is actually becoming an ovomorph, and it's not what we now know as their life cycle. It didn't acknowledge the queen or any of that. It's they had taken the one guy, I forget his name, and kidnapped him and was turning him into an egg.
Right.
And it was super gross. And there's a scene actually in the current run, Alien Revival, where it's not an egg morphing scene, but it is you're not seeing someone killed in a gross way. You're seeing somebody in a very, very gross state. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty descriptive in the panel. So sometimes there's some back and forth, we got to be careful how much we show of this.
It's when we talked to Joe Staten, I remember he made a comment at one point where some of it's not censorship, but the editorial notes that come back, they find that when they actually worked around it to put in sound effects or do things off panel, it actually made it way worse than showing the action. So.
Yeah, there are definitely time. Yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily have to go full Cronenberg all the time and show everything. There are times when it's more effective not to, for certain. And we've done some of that in this book already. Actually, we've covered some stuff up. We covered some stuff up in the Carnage book too. Actually, that was another one. I'm kind of getting this rep for being the guy who wants to, eviscerate everybody because they put me on a Carnage book. I mean, I feel like it needs it. Yeah. But there was a scene in Extreme Carnage Omega in which this guy gets in one swoop, Carnage like just pulls this guy apart in a bunch of different pieces, and the editorial note was just "guh," like GUH, like we're going to have to address this, and I think we ended up covering up the guy's lungs with some letters or something. It gets pretty rough.
I love that. The book is literally titled "Extreme Carnage," but we have to be careful with it.
Well, in their defense, I'm pushing pretty hard. Like, I'm definitely seeing what we can get away with in some of these books.
Now, when it comes to a franchise like Alien, that is, I feel like there's a lot of people, like when it comes to Superman, who complain like, oh, what do you do with Superman and all that? But I think, there's a ton to do with Superman. With the Alien franchise, it does seem like they, I love the franchise, don't get me wrong, but they do tend to lean on similar tropes and similar things like, oh, we're going to send some people without all the information to this place, and there's Xenomorphs. So, like, when you're handling something like that, how do you approach that with like, well, I want to give someone stuff they're familiar with, but I'm trying to do something new, but there's a lot of restrictions in what you can do there. So how do you even like approach that?
I'm very mindful of it. And the first arc, I kind of pulled a Force Awakens in that first arc and gave us something that was very familiar. I really wanted, I guess I'm kind of throwing some shade at Force Awakens because that was almost a remake of Episode 4.
For sure.
But I didn't want to go that far. But I did want to kind of toe the line in tone between the first and second movie. That first movie to me is like I can't say it's better than the second one, but to me it's probably my favorite. The fact that every few minutes for a while you're getting your mind blown in a new way. It's just unbelievable what they get away with in that film. Like when you first see the inside of the derelict, and then you see the space jockey, and you the eggs, and then the dinner scene, and then the grown up like the xenomorph, like the whole Giger design. It's beat after beat after beat. You're just like, holy shit, what did I just see? Yeah. And you've got to try to capture those feelings without just doing the same thing over again. Because I mean, you can't just have a chest burster scene. They've seen it now. So now you've got to find a way to capture that feeling in the reader again without just doing the same old thing. So anyway, in that first arc, I tried to capture that claustrophobic monster movie, monster hiding in the dark kind of feeling, but also have the iconic images of Alien versus Space Marine that everyone still associates with those films. Because I mean, the only directives I got from Marvel was like, just give us something kind of like the Cameron film. And I kind of pushed back on that because that's what everyone does. Like there's how many book covers and video games and whatever. Yeah, I didn't want to just do it again because I mean, we've seen that image so much and it's awesome and that's why, but we can't just do the same thing. So I wanted to find a new way to kind of recycle aspects of that in a way that it gives a fresh story with a fresh kind of protagonist, like a male, Hispanic protagonist that's a company man, somebody who's not going to be compared to Ripley, like the ultimate action hero, somebody who's different enough that's like no one's going to confuse with Ripley.
Yeah.
But also have the setting and the vibe be super familiar. So that was that first arc. But now that we've done that and we've established that it's going to feel like the Alien franchise everyone knows and loves, now I'm trying to take kind of half steps away from that and take steps into new territory that we haven't seen to keep people interested, to see the xenomorph in different scenarios and different kinds of setting, like visual settings. And that was kind of the name of the game with the second one. I wanted to do some world building. I wanted to see a kind of an old world setting, like Appalachia kind of setting with xenomorphs. And then, if we used the actual old world mountains in America, it wouldn't make any sense because, we've established that they don't show up until later. So we have this terraformed moon on this other world where this religious sect has been hired by the United Americas to terraform this colony for them. And if they succeed, if the place is profitable, then they annex it to them. It kind of becomes their Utah. Mm-hmm. And so it gives us an excuse to show, aliens in the cornfields and, on the barn and all these things that we've been seeing on the covers.
It's cool stuff.
So I try to start from a place of familiarity to kind of boil down my answer. Start from a place of familiarity that makes people feel at home with Alien, and then kind of very gently move them away from that, show them new kinds of xenomorphs, new kinds of stories, new kinds of protagonists.
One of the things you could maybe dispel the rumor very quickly, although, well, maybe we'll see. People keep bringing up that this is all leading to some kind of giant moment where the Avengers come into the scene and you do a crossover. It's not going there, from everything I can tell. Is that should people stop worrying about that?
I don't think people should worry about that. I do think it's. I mean, if I had to, this is not a spoiler, but I think it'll probably happen at some point, and there'll be some kind of an event in which either the alien. I mean, I've not written it yet. Certainly, there'll be an event where the aliens somehow break through into this dimension, into the 616, or they tie it into the Brood somehow, which is a huge ripoff, obviously.
Yes.
Find a way to make it work and have this big, crazy event story. I mean, I think we'll probably see Alien versus Predator. I think we'll probably see, AVP versus, the Marvel Universe or whatever. But that's not going to touch these stories that I'm doing now. The stories that I'm doing are very much in the stories of the film franchise. And I want these books to feel very much like they're like a book that belongs on the shelf next to the movies. Like you can go right from one to the next and it's all in the same place. That is where I kind of felt like Dark Horse went a little bit wrong as it went on. They told a lot of really awesome creative stories, and some of them are some of my favorite Alien stories ever. But as they kind of pile on each other, they took steps further and further from the film canon until it kind of became a parallel universe kind of fan fiction feeling story. Yeah. And it's cool, but I feel like it's very much its own thing. And I want these books to, very much like the Star Wars books now at Marvel, I want the Alien comics to feel very much in the same franchise as the TV and films.
We often talk about this with kind of other creators. Social media as a presence, net helpful, net harmful. Do you have a take on that?
I'm not very good at it. I'll say that. I'm not as active on there as I should be, probably. But I stay super busy. I'm still in the Army while I'm writing. Kind of got this other career going. So I'm trying to make sure I turn in all the scripts in a timely fashion and, be a good dad and all that. So I don't really devote a lot of time to social media in a way that will be helpful. I do think it matters, and it helps you promote your work and the work of other people whose work you admire. And I try to do that. I try to just remind people like, hey, this book's coming out. Check out some art from my artist on action number or whatever. Check out this, Kickstarter by a friend of mine, or this work I just discovered of this incredible artist. I think it's very useful to kind of promote people that you think deserve it. And I just discovered another podcast by some guys who are super cool out of Vegas, and I kind of use it to help promote them. And I push a lot of books and creators on there. I kind of stay out of the fray as far as politics and being pissed about stuff. I try not to, I feel like Twitter's not a super great place to be angry or edgy. I try to use it as a place to promote my own work, the work of people that I think should be promoted, make a joke now and again, but for the most part, it's just kind of trying to spread good work,
Yeah.
I mean, sounds great to me. I think that's, I wish there was more of that.
Yeah. I mean, today I did just watch The Green Knight, a movie that I've been dying to see forever. The Green Knight is a story that means a lot to me. I go back and read the Tolkien translation of the original poem all the time. And I really wanted to see that movie, and I like the ending. I kind of wanted to see what people thought about the ending, so I just kind of put out this little thing like, "Hey, what does everyone think about The Green Knight?" I want to talk about, not like spoilery way, but like, what's everyone else's take? And I got some interesting thoughts about that movie that I had not considered, and just kind of bantered about a movie together. And then it kind of morphed into this thing where I had an opportunity to say something nice about Midnight Mass. It's on Netflix, and it was just a bunch of nerds kind of saying nice things about stuff they like. That was cool.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. And, I get to, it's a great platform for me to push stuff I care about.
Well, I mean, I think that's the right way to go. That's your superpower right there. You just identified in addition to writing and the work. No, I want to thank you for your time. It's great. I hope we can have a chance to talk to you again at some point.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Yeah, I've been listening to the show. I appreciate what you guys are doing. It's a very welcome perspective, and yeah, I'd love to come back on.
Well, thank you. And best of success, Superman. I think we're all enjoying that and watching it play out, and Aliens and all these other things. And people should please go look at the book from Scout here, Smoketown, and some of those titles. You can go to your website. You've got all the material listed there. And we didn't
thanks.
I
appreciate it. I am very excited about the work we're doing on Alien and Superman. Superman is like Action Comics. It's just such an honor to write that book. And we're putting a ton of I'm just totally last godding Superman, like putting all this love into different cultures and languages, and I want World to feel real. And I've seen the art for the next couple issues that's coming out, and I just cannot wait for people to see it. It's going to be so great. I love these characters, love my colleagues, so hope everyone enjoys it.
Oh, looks incredible, sounds incredible. We'll be watching it. Joe, thank you very much for joining us today. And
and thanks for chatting with us.
My pleasure. Joe, I'll probably see you in New York.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, have a drink for me, and I will talk to you again really soon.
Sounds good, Perch. Thanks so much.
Okay.
That's great.